What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and welcome to another Star Citizen Week in Review. Now, before we start the video, I do just want to let you guys know that for those of you that aren't too familiar with me, I live in Florida, and Hurricane Dorian is right off the east coast of us, and we're not really in any danger right now, but if it does take a turn towards us, which is a very unexpected turn, we may be in some danger. But what I really want to put out there is that Hurricane Dorian's been over the Bahamas for well over a day now, and I want to put some links in the description, or at least one trusted link in the description if I can find one, for any sort of relief for the Bahamas. This is probably more damage and devastation that was done in Puerto Rico with Irma, so they're really going to need our help to kind of get out of this. So just kind of thoughts and I guess prayers with them. And yeah, now I guess we can get right into the video after the doom and gloomy stuff. But as always, we start out with the patch notes, and the PTU got 2 patches today, this week, but nothing on the live build. So we had a 3.6.2D patch where we saw the attrition and dominance weapons have their heat damage multiplier completely nerfed. It's gone, and they got a slight damage increase to make up for the nerf, but it's really just a temporary thing to figure out a solution for the shield penetration issue. So for the guys that aren't too familiar with what's going on with that, is basically certain weapons just are completely ignoring shields, and maybe there isn't really a solid answer as to why right now. So they fixed those weapons in 3.6.2D. Now moving on to 3.6.2E, our second patch in the PTU, they also nerfed the neutron weapons, which are weapons that do more damage at longer range. So they nerfed the long range damage multiplier to make up again for the shield penetration issue. So it's happening on multiple weapons, and it's a big issue because ships don't really have armor right now. So the shields are kind of all we got. And then we normally do the roadmap update after the patch notes, but today we're going to go into video content because some of the video content is actually on roadmap updates, and we'll get into it at some point in the video content discussion. But starting out with Inside Star Citizen, they started the video out with an Aegis Nautilus feature, and it was less of a marketing buy this ship feature than normal. It was more of a, this is what you're going to use this ship for in the game.
So one of the key aspects for mine layers and minesweepers is maintaining their minefields. Minefields offer a great way to add defensive gameplay to Star Citizen. They allow players, whether they're in an org or solo players, to ring fence or protect a sort of strategic asset, whether that's a space station or even just entry methods to certain areas. Aside from the mine laying side of the gameplay, there's the people on the other end of mines. It ties into the whole scanning and exploration side, so these mines are quite hard to detect. So obviously you wouldn't want them to be huge gleaming red beacons of light that you know are there. They sort of embed themselves into the world quite nicely, and ships that are designed for hunting things down, such as scanners, great, they can find them. If you want to go through a minefield, then the Nautilus itself can do some minesweeping with its drones, but then other ships equipped with EMP or distortion weapons can temporarily disable them, which helps give other combat ships a way through these areas. And then there's the whole supply chain side. So whilst the Nautilus is best placed to bring more mines and recover those mines, other ships will be able to sort of assist in that functionality as well.
I hope you like my Wing Commander 1 little B-roll insert in there, just to show that Chris Roberts' games, as they said in the video, have always had mines, and it was part of the gameplay there. Why wouldn't it be a part of the gameplay here? I still, like I've said in previous videos, it's a little weird in the PU because it's so open and so big, but the mention of how you can kind of defend strategically important areas to you being so important, this is a really good way to defend them, especially with the mines that have the guns on them. So it's an interesting thing. I'm looking forward to seeing how it's implemented in the game, but we know there's probably going to be quite some time before that. Now, Sprint Report is the next part of the video, and that's where we see kind of what are they working on right now? What have they been working on the last couple weeks?
The character, props, weapons, and graphics team recently worked together to sort through about 400 plus materials in a review designed not only to improve the overall quality and detail of elements used in everything from clothing to FPS weapons and more, but also to streamline things like diffuse textures and normal maps into a more systemic system that allows our artists greater freedom and creativity when creating new materials for player-used items in the verse. It's ongoing work involving higher fidelity scan data that, when complete, should bring an improved level of realism and depth to existing assets. Next up, the EU vehicle content team are exploring some livery options for the upcoming release of the Vanguard, Sentinel, and Harbinger. Now, what you're going to see here are not approved final paint jobs. I'm going to say that again just to be sure. They're not approved final paint jobs, but they are explorations currently taking place. You're going to see more of the two remaining Vanguards in the coming weeks. In other color explorations, the USPU Gameplay Features team recently completed a sprint exploring a variety of new improvements to the Mobiglass embedded chat system, including, as you can see here, the ability to assign specific chat colors to individual channels to help you always know which group you're speaking to. It's one of several improvements the team is making to the overall chat experience coming online in the near future. Of course, it's not all visuals this week, as the weapons features team has been working to bring additional attachments online to complement the scopes that were added in Alpha 3.6, like the suppressor for the LH-86 ballistic pistol from Gemini. Suppressors, scopes, underbarrel attachments, and more are just some of the ways the weapon features team are working to let players customize their FPS experience in the Star Citizen universe. And finally for this week, the audio team has been incorporating updates to the systemic Foley system that can alter the audio effects heard dynamically as your oxygen is depleted or your character continues to exert themselves. As well as detect the speed of a player character's bones when they fall and impact on a surface to create a more robust sound when you attempt to make that superhero landing on the surface of a planet or a moon. That sound makes my knees hurt.
I know they're not final, but that blue and yellow Vanguard paint job looks awesome, and I'm pretty excited to 007 kill some NPCs with my suppressed pistol. It sounded awesome. And then moving on to the real meat of the show was the UI feature, which was about their foundation set called Building Blocks. And I'm just going to let this whole thing play for you pretty much.
It's a very exciting time right now for the UI. For the past several months, we've been working on some new tech that we're calling building blocks internally, but really what it is a replacement for our current UI tools. Before, what we had was a very difficult to use system that uses Flash and Scaleform. And what we wanted to do for the developers internally was to basically make a tool and a system to make it much easier to actually get UIs into the game. Historically, it's been very difficult to actually author something, and the process has been very convoluted in terms of authoring an asset, not seeing it live update in the game, having to export, reload the editor every time you want to make a change. So now with the new tech, we have so many new features that we can employ, like fluid layout, being able to flexibly size a layout to a particular screen dimension so as to make it much easier for us to maintain, because we have a lot of different screen aspect ratios and screen dimensions that we need to manage in the game. We have some really cool stuff in our that we built for the UI tech, like a way to dynamically lay out elements in any configuration that a designer might want. So you can lay stuff out in columns, you can lay out stuff in rows, you can have them automatically shrink or automatically grow, so it's a very flexible tool. We also have some very unique functionality to our UI tech, one of which includes a post transform, which basically takes a rectangular element and transforms it radially, so you can actually easily create radial menus. And all the functionality that you would have in a regular linear rectangular element is then it's simply inherited into the radial menu. That's what we focus on, is just how do we make it easy and very intuitive for a designer to actually create what they want and get what they want out of the tool. What excites me the most about actually working on this is that it's very much the foundational system that everyone's going to use to build UI. As the UI artists, we still have a responsibility to define like the styles and the looks and the standardization of the UI, but to actually prototype something and prototype some gameplay loops, anyone can do that now. They don't have to be a specialist, they don't have to have a special program to be able to actually author a UI or implement a UI in the game. They can just go into our own internal tool, create it themselves, and easily hook up variables from the game to the UI and test stuff. We can actually see much more gameplay start to come alive and the universe starting to feel alive and dynamic.
That looks so simple and so easy to use, and we're going to talk about it later, but you can already kind of see the impacts on the roadmap from building blocks being more implemented into their game development than it was previously. So I'm super excited for this, and I really, really hope over the next 6-9 months, a year, we really see a lot of gameplay come out of the fact that they don't have UI holding them up all the time. We had another video that came out this week, and it was Pillar Talk. And Pillar Talk is usually a discussion on kind of the current features that are coming up in the next patch. But this Pillar Talk was a little bit different, where they wanted to talk about how they're changing the way they do development again. And I've done a few videos on Pillar Talk already, so I really don't want to talk about it too much in this video. What I want to highlight is the important kind of things that they said in this video that really stuck out to me. So the first one is kind of the disconnect from the QA episode, where they talked about the fact that they're really only interested in the patch being stable for about 2 hours, versus what we're going to hear kind of Aaron and John Crew say in this video.
This episode, though, we're going to focus on a couple things. The first one, development. We're going to talk a little about the development process. We frequently will kind of go through and evaluate our development process from time to time, and then we're doing that right now. So, Aaron, what are we here to chat about?
You know, working on the project, and you know, we've adjusted a few times on the development side in terms of you know, working out what works, what doesn't work. We noticed in the last 2 deliveries we missed it by a couple of weeks each time, because basically some features were coming in late, and so we couldn't get the rest, you know, the proper QA time to go in, and then you want to get it out.
There's no point having 1,000 features in the game if half the time half of them don't work how you would expect them to be. You're not going to have a fun time playing in that game.
So the idea is, rather than trying to get it done and squeeze it all into 3 or 4 weeks, we actually give ourselves plenty of time, so when we're delivering these features, we don't have more time to develop and make sure they're right. We have more time to really polish them. We have more time to really make sure that they, you know, that they're fun, they work.
We've got a huge amount of features in the game that if we tweak and sort of polish those, they all just work together so much more nicely, and then the whole overall experience becomes a lot better.
When we put new features in now, we don't have the time, and things break, and it's frustrating. We want to get away from that. We want to make that now when we deliver. You know, my huge drive is to make sure that, you know, from now on, every time we deliver, it is better.
Kind of on the cadence, the staggered of 6 months. Why 6 months? Why not a year? What was kind of the thinking behind that?
I mean, if a feature needed more than 6 months, we would have it. It was just more about doubling the cadence. We felt like typically 6 months is quite a good number, but yes, sometimes things take longer. But there will be some features which may need 9 months. They need 9 months, people work on 9 months. It's just that what we aren't prepared to do is just try and throw it all in at the end and then just have this huge mess of stuff and things. We want to actually get to a level where it goes in because it's working, it's been tested. We think it's fun, it's great. Yes, there's going to be 1 or 2 issues and a few polished things, but we now know we have the time to really make it great.
The focus is really on fun and gameplay and excitement, when the reality of what we have right now definitely isn't that. So it's really interesting to see how certain people look at the game in different ways, even in the development studio, not just like on Reddit or in the YouTube comments, right? Like even in their studio, different people who are at different points in the game, I guess, look at the game differently. But more importantly, I think this is what they want to do and what they plan. If this works, what we should expect from the game. We should expect things to work better. We should expect a lot more fun, because the foundation of the game that's there, like Aaron said, and I believe like John said as well, that it's actually quite fun. What's there isn't bad. What's there is quite good. It's just hard to experience it a lot of the time because of just the general nature of the alpha right now. And then what the next part that I want to discuss is the fact that the quarterly releases and the way they were doing it before had a really negative impact on the developers. And there's a little bit of discussion that goes on here on how that will improve a lot with the new way of doing things.
It's essentially the same process, just over a larger time frame, which just makes each of those individual gates a much more achievable set of goals.
We want to keep a quarterly delivery, but why do we need to force all the teams all the time to be trying to hit this quarterly delivery?
It compromises especially on the dev side, when in your mind you've got the first week of a quarter, you're doing your planning, you know what you're going to do, you execute on it, then you prepare it for the patch, and you go out to Evocati PTU and you're doing your feedback, and then you're expecting a date for it to be gone, and you start again. When it goes past that, the other date doesn't tend to move, so you then have to pinch that time back somewhere. Do you take it out of planning? Taking out of planning is usually a bad thing, because then it makes executing it worse. Because you're moving away from just ticking off a feature and saying, technically it's done, that feature works, but you have to work around it by doing this, and that. It allows people to sort of have more pride and just a great feeling about doing this thing. Like, this is a feature that I've worked on for 6 months and it works great. So now I'm happy for people to play it, rather than I was told I had to do this feature and this is what was provided in the time, and I know it's not great.
Yeah, it's like, this is all I can do in the time. We wanted it out, and you know, a lot of that is about getting stuff in. There'll be a lot of different cool stuff, you know, getting the economy working properly, getting a bunch of missions working properly, getting the AI working properly, getting lots of locations on the planets with all the different feature sets we have for creating. We've got this wonderful, you know, the planetary tech, which allows us to basically just create, you know, everything on the fly and the location on the fly, get all that stuff working. If we get that stuff working, we get this working stuff, and then we have an amazing gameplay experience, and then we can provide features and content and gameplay for years to come.
Yeah, I really hope this works. I'm super excited for it. I was excited for the quarterly releases. That didn't work out so well for us or for them. So I'm hoping that this is a better situation. You live and you learn throughout your entire life, and this seems to be no different than that. I'm not too upset about it. In the YouTube comments about Pillar Talk, I've seen a few people who are actually software developers or game developers say they don't really think this is going to work out, but I'm just going to kind of, I guess, blindly have some faith on the fact that Aaron knows what he's doing, and that they're gonna continue to learn from their mistakes as they go along, and they're obviously going to make them. And yeah, so I'm thinking that things are going to be a lot better. And probably we won't see it too much in 3.7, but I think over the course of the next year or so, hopefully we're going to see that kind of sandwiching gameplay on top of the foundation features that we have here. So moving on, since this was so much about how the roadmap is going to look like in the future, let's talk about the Persistent Universe roadmap. So since the team changed the way they were doing dev again, a lot's changed on the 3.7 roadmap specifically. So I'm going to go through kind of the key additions and updates to the 3.7 patch for today's video, as well as some of the key subtractions. So for additions and updates, we had AI combat improvements, which is an average skilled AI pilot. But one of the things that are the feature there is that different actions of the AI should be based on what faction you are. If you're a security guard, if you're a pirate, if you're a certain pirate versus another pirate, they should kind of act differently a little bit. And a really big surprise that came in was caves. I'm super excited to explore these on moons and planets and see what they have to offer. We've kind of seen little things about them and they were looking good, but I didn't know how far they were along to being, kind of procedurally added. But looks like we'll be getting them in 3.7. First-person mining as part of the caves is something really exciting. I think you guys know that I enjoy the economy aspects of the game, so getting out of your ship and mining some rocks on our feet sounds pretty fun as well. And then harvestables. They were kind of telling us that these were really far away for some time now, and just they magically appear in 3.7. So this was a really big surprise for me, and I'm just more curious on how are we going to profit or gain from these, and and how are they going to be really implemented into the game. I assume it's going to be a really tier 0 implementation to start, especially since they were talking about how far away it was, but kind of excited about that. And a new version of hover mode coming in now. IFCS Proximity Assist is on the roadmap. I don't know if this means rest in peace hover mode or if it's just an addition to the current hover mode to aid in the issues that we were experiencing in the 3.6 patch. But regardless, this seems to be a reasonable update as to how things are going to work. When you get to low altitude and low speed of flying, it should just create a situation where you're able to make much finer movements instead of the hover mode mechanic. So it does sort of look like hover mode's kind of on the out. Also, you can turn this on and off, which is really nice. And then probably the thing I'm most excited about, being a content creator and someone who loves to play games with his friends, is mission sharing. So that's a really big change. We should be able to share objectives with our party as well as the mission rewards. So really excited to see how that worked. We saw that back a few weeks ago with Luke Presley and the team on Star Citizen Live, that they'd kind of broken through that wall and seen some interesting work coming together on mission sharing, but I really didn't expect it for 3.7, so a very welcoming surprise there. And then personal commodity inventory is the last thing that we're going to talk about. And it seems a little different than what a physicalized inventory was listed on the roadmap previously. So we'll have places to store, I guess, our mineable and harvestable things. But I'm kind of curious, and I'm going to ask this question of for Star Citizen Live next week, which will go on a little bit later. I'm kind of curious on how is this different than physicalized inventories, the personal commodity inventory. Now, moving into key subtractions from the patch, we saw rest stop interiors leave and go into 3.8. Bartender improvements. See you later. They talked about bartenders forever, and I'm not gonna lie, wasn't super excited for that. So I'm not too sad to see it go. Refueling with fuel scooping, that isn't making it into the patch, and PvP bounties are not as well. All of the performance improvements to certain things like asteroids and basically what's usually towards the bottom side of the roadmap, all moved. Ship to station docking is a big one, and that's moved into 3.8, as well as the dynamic mission system. Ship to station docking was moved from 3.8, and dynamic mission system as well was moved from 3.8 to later in the year. So not just 3.7 got a little bit of big changes, but 3.8 as well. So somewhat disappointing, but it should be a more positive change. We'll just have to see. And moving on to Star Citizen Live this week. This will be the 4th week in a row that we don't really have a discussion about it. Part of that is because of Hurricane, but the other part is because they didn't really show much of what I expected from new rest stop interiors. I expected them to be much more large and grand, and all we really looked at was a hallway for an hour. So I'm not sure if they're not quite ready to go. I mean, obviously they were moved out of 3.7, so they probably are not, but that's what we had. And lastly, as always, we go into the miscellaneous topics for the week, and we're gonna I think this is gonna be kind of a staple within the miscellaneous section. Is This Week in Star Citizen pops up while I'm usually working on this, and they talk about what we're gonna see next week on Star Citizen Live, and they're gonna cover all of our questions about staggered development and all things about development in general. So I will leave a link in the description to the question thread, and you can post a question there. I know I'll be posting mine. I'll even leave a link to the question that I post if I can get it in time before the power goes out. There was a really interesting thing on Reddit, and I wanted to put this in the miscellaneous section. So I have the video here, and it's basically an animation for the medical tables, I guess they're called. I can't remember what they're called, but it's just something really interesting and neat, and I saw it on Reddit, and I thought it'd be really cool to share with you guys here. Now that is officially going to do it with the video. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. As always, I really appreciate all the love that we got on these videos. I mean, the The view count for last week's video was well above what we get for our videos on average. So I think you guys are really enjoying them. I hope you really like the format. As always, leave me any feedback in the comments below if I missed anything, if you want to see a change to the format, if you like the format, whatever your heart's desire down there. And if you like more videos like this and what we've been doing on the channel, hit that subscribe button. And if you ever want to catch me live and ask me any questions, talk to me, play video games with me, I do stream on Twitch 6 days a week at 6:30 a.m. Eastern time, except for Friday we just kind of watch Inside Star Citizen together for about an hour. And I take Saturdays off because I work on those days. But yeah, come check me out at twitch.tv/SaltEMike. That link will also be in the description. And I will see you guys in the next